1980, 1990, and 2000, because this is when the boomers were in their 30s, depending on when they were born, compared to us millennials today. Housing prices, 48K, 76K, 105,000. Interest rates, 13.7, 10%, 8%. Principal and interest on those with a 20% down payment, 446, 534, 616. Average rent, 243, 447, and 602. Median household income, 21,000, 30,000, 42,000. Why am I sharing all this? Because collectively, no matter when you were born, boomers, whether you were born in the 40s, 50s, or 60s, you were spending on average about 18% of your income on rent and or housing.
Correct.
Just 18%. And I will say in the 1980s, the older boomers in 1980, with those high interest rates, you were spending about 25% of your income, so you felt a little pressure. But if you didn't want to buy a home, you could rent for just 14% of your income. Now let's fast forward to today. The millennials in their 30s, 2023, the average home's 436, the average rent is 2,000, interest rates are 7.5%, and the average income for a median household is $81,000. So to own a house, which you couldn't even qualify for this house, by the way, but it'd be 36% of a family's income. And if they were forced to rent, it's 29%.
I didn't intend to do this. I accidentally conducted a social experiment in my comment sections, and the results are hilarious and also tragic. For context, my most recent TikTok is a message to boomers about how if your child approaches you with feedback about how your behavior impacts them and you don't take accountability, you can lose the relationship. Okay, so this is where the social experiment begins. 2 TikToks prior to that, I gave millennial parents some really unnecessarily harsh feedback. I literally said, this is how you're gonna fuck up your child. And look how they responded to this feedback. Like, so open, literally changing their behaviors in real time, showing gratitude. For the few who didn't like the format of my post and my message, they literally said that without attacking me and then gave me suggestions for how to be more effective. Yeah. And now for the boomer parents. So yeah, lots of defensiveness, some attacking, some name calling, some
looks like the current administration,
changing the topic. Both generations of parents were given feedback by me around how their behaviors are hurting their children, and this is how each generation chose to respond. Here's the sad part, though. The way that these boomer parents responded to me and other adult children in the comment section is a window into how they responded to their own adult children when their children came to them with feedback and pain. Did you also use the strategy of dismissing them, name-calling them, making these passive-aggressive threats, and changing the topic with your own child? I don't want you to have lost your child.
Right.
I don't want you to be in a no-contact place. That is incredibly painful. The greatest pain a human being can go through is losing their child, whether that be the death of the bond or the death of the actual child. And it's devastating to sit with the pain of a child, whether it be a minor or adult, who feels emotionally abandoned and unknown to their parents.
Right.
And let's talk about the elephant in the room when we bring up accountability as a parent, because to take accountability as a parent means facing the question, am I a bad parent?
Boomers.
If my child comes to me and tells me that I hurt them, then am I a bad parent? Am I a bad mom? And that is a horrifying question to have to face. And especially if you don't feel like you have someone who can co-regulate you, like if you're not close with your spouse and you're kind of alone out here emotionally in the world, that question will swallow you alive because it is lined, it is venomous with shame, with parental shame, right? And it's just gonna eat you alive if you don't know how to handle it, or if you can't be co-regulated by someone that you trust. And so if we look at the cycle of what's happening, a child approaches their parent and says, hey, I have all this pain that your behavior caused me.
Right.
That parent then has that shame, internal shame spiral, can't go there. And rather than go there, shuts that child down through that same stuff you were throwing in our comment section of dismissing, of changing the topic, of whataboutism, right? And now you two are even more disconnected. And you are both in pain. This is why in family therapy and in the model that I practice, I work with my parents individually first, because I realize the caregiving that I'm asking you to do, this emotional maneuvering is a lot. And you have to go past that elephant, right? It's more like a freaking dragon, right? This shame dragon. Parents are supposed to be the stronger, wiser other, right? And so, because we're not looking to children to co-regulate us, right? We need our spouse or another party like a therapist to help us navigate around that dragon so that you can show up emotionally for your child. If you're a boomer and you're watching this saying like, can this work? Can I do this? The answer is, if you want to, then yes. Yeah. If you do the work of going through the scary process of navigating your feelings so that you can show up emotionally for your child.
I don't want to do that.
I'm not saying it's a guarantee. This is not a promise. And it's the only option you have.
So boomers really do think because our generation goes out to eat and goes on vacations, that is why we cannot afford a home. I came across this video where this millennial was talking about how we can't afford a home. And there were all of these boomers in the comments saying how, millennials eat out all of the time. They spend money on streaming services. They spend money on things they don't need, which is why they're not able to afford a house. I even saw someone say, it's because they take vacations every year. That's why they can't afford anything. Do they not understand, even when you account for inflation, houses back then were extremely cheap. Like, you could easily afford it on just one income. And not just costs, but the job market.
Yep.
It is so hard to find a job right now.
Yep.
And no, you can't just go in and give them your resume and shake hands with the president and now you got a job like it was back then. And the crazy thing is when they talk about how millennials go on vacation, go out to restaurants, and that they sacrifice that's why they were able to afford things. They could have done all of those things and more and still afford a house back then. That's how different it is now compared to like 30, 40 years ago.
We expected nothing, so everything we got was a bonus. Millennials expect everything, so everything is a disappointment.
Millennials born between 1980 to 1995.
I'm a geriatric millennial. That's the 84.
I was going to say that.
Hanging on by my aging fingernails.
You're the entitled generation,
No,
Owen.
I think that's unfair. I'll give you one basic reason. So, half of baby boomers own their own home by the age of 30.
Right.
For millennials, it's 30%. It's not because millennials are spending all their money on cappuccinos or Netflix. It's just one basic statistic. 40 years ago, the average home cost 3 times the average salary. It's now 8.5 times the average salary. Now, just housing costs, you spend far more as a percentage of your income, even if you're a private renter. So if you're a millennial, you don't get council housing. Don't even think about it. You'll be stuck on a waiting list until you're probably actually in your retirement. You can't get a home often because house prices are so expensive. But the other thing is the private rented sector is a rip-off. You're paying huge amounts of your wage packet on private rent.
The budgets of households of the baby boomers grew up in would be considered austerity by your level. We had to spend 35% of available income on food.
That's cap. We already went over the numbers.
Millennials spend 19%.
That's
you
a
spend
lie.
much more on luxuries than we
19%?
On wealth, that's not true, because wealth for ordinary people is your home that you own. But millennials...
Is that all you've got? The home
millennials
See, she's not even trying to listen. That's the problem that a lot of these boomers do, right? The moment he started rebuttaling with facts, she wanted to look.
That you own. But millennials...
Is that all you've got? The home
millennials are far...
Yeah, because the home ownership thing equals equity. Like, in today's market, it equals paying cheaper to live somewhere than it does to rent somewhere. That's why that's as important. Welcome to the channel, y'all. I'm going to keep this continuation going because I think this conversation needs to be spread more. I don't think we're being too nice to him, honestly. I'm not saying violate and disrespect, but the dismissiveness that these boomers have.
I mean, you know, millennials spend 19%. You spend much more.
We don't spend 19% on, look, you spend much more on luxuries. No, we don't. Taking a $600 vacation one time a year is not changing my position in life. It does nothing. It does nothing. If anything, I recommend you take more vacations to try to get away from this BS. Like this is narcissism. That's all they do. They don't accept any responsibility on how things are and why they are the way they are. They look at it as, hey, it was like this when I was younger. You're younger now. You have the same opportunities, when that's not the case. The numbers are not the same. The market is not the same. And apparently, obviously, right, this comes from a show in Great Britain. So is not just happening in America. It's happening everywhere, apparently. Right? We're all saying the same shit. The only people that I'm honestly not seeing speak up enough about it, besides Gen Z or millennials, are Gen Xers. Y'all just being quiet. Why are y'all not saying anything? Get your boomer parents the fuck out the way. They have to move out the way, bro. Eventually they will, whether via death or whatever the case may be. They have to get out the way. All right, we got to vote correctly, so we don't. And I see a common sentiment with people that disagree in the comments saying, "Sorry, I got something on my monitor," saying, "Well, voting is the reason why things the way they are now." If you think voting has no impact on this shit right here, you're delusional and you're out of touch as well. Voting, let's say for instance, right? You have someone running for mayor in my city and things need to change and and that person, that older individual who probably grew up in the city at a different time, don't live probably in the city, or he lives in a good part now, not the part he grew up in, right? And I'm running for mayor on the other side of that, and I grew up in the exact portion of the city that they're saying needs to be changed, right? But people, being that this guy has been in this position already for 20 to 30 years, and he's in his late 70s, would much rather, it's changed. I can see around the nation that has changed. But most people would vote that same individual in because that's what they know, right? Instead of taking 5 minutes to see like, hey, the other guy, he's been, the older guy, he's out of touch. None of his policies or none of the things he's going to implement is going to actually benefit anybody but himself. His salary has went up $20,000 more a year than X, Y, and Z. But the younger guy, he's aware. He has community relations. People like him. And his policies align with the vision that the community's going to go. People should be voting that way. A lot of people are not either participating or they're voting too old school. We're letting the Gen X, the late Gen Xers and the baby boomers outvote us. That's what this shit really comes down to, is your voting. We have to vote correctly so we can get them out the way. We can't keep allowing the same shit to happen because we refuse to get out and participate. I used to be the same person. Hey, I'm not going to vote. X, Y, and Z. It's all rigged. That's lazy. That's lazy ethic right there. But then I'm complaining on the back end about the shit that's affecting me. You have to get out and vote. You have to participate. I'm not saying be, over consumed in politics and X, Y, and Z. All I'm saying is just slightly involve yourself just a little bit more. Slightly involve yourself a little bit more. Know what's actually happening around the community for the place that you live in. You know what I'm saying? Another big sentiment, right, that, I disagree with highly when it comes to dealing with, baby boomers in positions of power is talking, and I see that a lot where I'm at. You have a lot of suburban people always talking shit about the city people, right? But how shitty the city is and this and that and the third, but they don't contribute anything to society at all. They don't volunteer. They don't do anything to make it better. All they do is sit back and critique the shit, right? I've volunteered. I've cleaned up the streets. You know what I'm saying? I've actually, mentored and done things in the community. Whereas you have more people sitting on the sidelines, got shit to say instead of actually putting in the work. All right. Now, this here,
1980, 1990, and 2000, because this is when the boomers were in their 30s, depending on when they were born, compared to us millennials today.
And when you equal out the numbers.
Housing prices, 48K, 76K, 105,000. Interest rates, 13.7, 10%, 8%. Principal and interest on those with a 20% down payment, 446, 534, 616. Average rent, 243, 447, and 602. Median household income, 21,000, 30,000. 42,000. Why am I sharing all this? Because collectively, no matter when you were born, boomers, whether you were born in the 40s, 50s, or 60s, you were spending on average about 18% of your income on rent and or housing. Just 18%. And I will say in the 1980s, the older boomers in 1980, with those high interest rates, you were spending about 25% of your income, so you felt a little pressure. But if you didn't want to buy a home, you could rent for just 14% of your income.
And for us right now, I'm going to let this play out.
Now let's fast forward to today. The millennials in their 30s, 2023. The average home's $436. The average rent is $2,000. Interest rates are 7.5%. And the average income for a median household is $81,000. So wicked, to own a house, which you couldn't even qualify.
I've never made $81,000 yet.
For this house, by the way. But it'd be 36% of a family's income. And if they were forced to rent, it's 29%.
Hold on. Wait. The number's running off on me. Oh, damn. Sorry, y'all. Damn. I can't get it to the spot that I wanted. All right, so you can see, as I said, in the data, it's all in the data and the numbers, right? And, you know, when boomers are wrong, which they're wrong about damn near everything, right, when it comes to this shit, because they don't like looking themselves in the mirror and realizing they are the problem, right? And again, as I want to state, this is not all boomers, okay? All boomers don't believe this way. There are some that are really aware, and they're very, very, you know, helpful in a sense as far as like, you know, trying to use their position to help certain people. So I'm not going to say it's all boomers, right? But again, if you voted this way, if you voted a certain way, people, this is a consequence of people voting and not participating correctly in society. You have to, regardless. I'm not saying you have to have a political side. I don't have a political side either. F both of them. I hope everything gets dismantled. I want to press the restart button real bad, right? But the fact of the matter is, we have to vote our way to get to that point. We can't say we're not going to participate, because the baby boomers are still going to participate. They're still going to participate. The baby boomers and the late end Gen Xers are going to participate. So we have to participate. We have to vote, right? We have to be more active. That's just what it is. A team, a football team full of players that practice and work out every single day is going to perform better than a team that only comes out on game day and doesn't practice. That's just what it is. You know, the numbers don't lie. But the fact that our median income right now, and this is 2023, this shit has went up. It says as of, I think, 2026, the median income has to be like 99,102. Where's this money at? Where's this money at? How are we supposed to obtain that? You got places all over with you know, you go on Indeed, everybody's hiring, but nobody's hiring. Right? Everybody's hiring, but nobody's hiring. Literally. You can go check that site. Most people are not receiving or not getting job offers. And then when you look at what's happening in the job sector right now, given this current administration, there are so many jobs being cut daily. Daily. And not only that, not only just because of that, but also because of the integration of AI. There's a lot of people losing their jobs to AI, right? That the vast majority of these boomers voted for, not knowing the consequences of how it's going to affect the generations below them. You know why? Because they're leaving. They don't care. They're not in the workforce. They're not in the workforce. What I do know is a common sentiment, right, in between white families, and I'm saying this respectfully because I'm not white, is you guys come from some very narcissistic parents. I see that's a common thing in the comments, right? Oh, my parents are dismissive, or they're gaslighting, they're narcissistic. I don't know what that's like coming from a black household. You know, my family used to pick cotton back in the day. You know, my grandmother that raised me picked cotton. She never had the chance or equity, given how this country was positioned, for her to even buy a house in the first place. So we wasn't even included in the conversation. I'm the first person out of my whole family to ever buy a house. And I just did that last year. The first out of everyone, right? My family has been on this continent since the inception of slavery. We were one of the first batches of slaves that arrived in America in 1647. My people have been here. This is how long we've been here. And I'm just being the first person to afford, given, my business ventures or whatever, and investing. I am the first to buy a home out of all of my generations. The first to buy. I don't know about my dad's side. We kind of stepped away from them when we got a little older. Yes, my father was present, nigga. Yes, he was present. That's a lie too, but we're gonna touch on that in another video. But what I find a common sentiment between the younger Gen X and millennials and even the Gen Zers, right, from Caucasian households mostly, because most black people don't speak about millennial, boomer, and all that other shit. That's some newer, more intact to what's going on terms. Most of us just call it 80s babies, 90s babies, and we reminisce on the short, the short hood shit that we love. That's it. This is a whole nother. I'm literally just learning about a lot of this shit the last 5 years because I was in the housing market. That's when I started learning, But like I said, a common sentiment that I'm hearing amongst young white people, young non-black people is, my parents they're dismissive. They say this, they say that. They're very nasty to y'all, right? The best thing y'all could do is stand up to them. Fuck all this guarding everybody's feelings, and you're not trying to disturb the peace of the family because they're good at, throwing that shit on you guys, guilt tripping you, making you feel a certain way, like you're responsible for the family falling apart and actually them not doing their job and holding the family together the right way, little shit like that. I don't know what that's like to be in that position. The black family that I come from, we didn't have much, but the one thing we were big on was morals, respect, and responsibility. No, the money probably wasn't there. We didn't have the equity, but we had morals, we had morals and respect. I'm not saying that you guys just don't. What I'm saying is there's a difference between the two. So I don't know what it's like to grow up in a white household with medium to high income earning parents. I don't know what that's like. Most of my family have had, if they've had a job or served in the military, my grandmother had to have 3 side jobs on top of the job that she had. We've always been like this. You know what I'm saying? So, again, I'm very empathetic to that. I'm not picking on white people I just know that there's a difference in how you guys are treated by your parents, given the situation and how you were born compared to ours. It is different, and it's more common in white families. But I thought it was pretty interesting how when she did this social experiment, how the feedback that she got from the millennial parents are completely different than the feedback that she got from the boomer parents. Right, as you can see here, these are from the millennial parents, very respectful. People are, just giving suggestions, which is how it should be. You should have an internal filter before you just type or say anything, speak anything. That's what I firmly believe in general, right? Now, let's scroll over here to the baby boomers comments, right? And you choose to affirm your petty or something victim identity. Who does that? That literally sounds like the dude in the White House right now. If this doesn't tell you, if this simple thing doesn't tell you, because I'm pretty sure all of you can probably look in the comments after this video is posted or other, and you see this shit, this is how we know, this is how black people have discernment to know what kind of person you are. We can tell. Look at how they're speaking. Right? Sorry about the noise. But that's all I'm saying, man. You have to stand up, and Gen Z, we need y'all. Real talk, because y'all the ones with the real backbone. The millennials, we have the knowledge and to step out there on this, and I'm one of them ones, But at the same time, y'all are the ones that are really implementing this shit. We need y'all, Gen Z, and that's just what it is. Hype the video. Thank you guys for tuning in. Ayo Bassel TV. Like, comment, share the video. I'm gonna see y'all in the next one. Peace.